you. Thanks, Paranita. And just a reminder, the sun always shines on the garden party day. So the sun will shine. But tonight I'm going to talk about a different kind of weather. So we're in this theme at the moment of looking at parables from the White Lotus Sutra. And Sanghajiva introduced us to the parable of the burning house a few weeks ago, where we looked at the Buddha using skillful means to help people come out of the burning house. They were playing with their toys. Sorry, is the volume not? Good. So we had the parable of the burning house. Bodhinaga last week talked about the return journey. And tonight I'm going to be talking about the parable of the rain cloud, or it's sometimes known as the parable of the herbs. And I'm going to start by reading an extract from it because it's poetical, and I'm going to read this extract from Sanghajiva's Drama of Cosmic Enlightenment. So it begins like this. It is like unto a great cloud rising above the world, covering all things everywhere, a gracious cloud full of moisture. Lightning flames flash and dazzle. Voice of thunder vibrates afar, bringing joy and ease to all. The sun's rays are veiled, and the earth is cooled. The cloud lowers and spreads, as if it might be caught and gathered. Its rain everywhere equally descends on all sides, streaming and pouring unstinted, permeating the land, on mountains, by rivers, in valleys, in hidden recesses there grow the plants, trees, and herbs. Trees both great and small, the shoots of the ripening grain, grapevine and sugarcane, fertilized are these by the rain, and abundantly enriched. The dry ground is soaked. Herbs and trees flourish together. From the one water which issued from that cloud, plants, trees, thickets, forests, according to need, receive moisture. All the various trees, lofty, medium, low, each according to its size. They grow and develop. Roots, stalks, branches, leaves, blossoms and fruits in their brilliant colors. Wherever the one rain reaches, all become fresh and glossy. According as their bodies, forms and natures are great or small, so the enriching rain, though it is one and the same, makes each of them flourish. In like manner, also the Buddha appears here in the world, like unto a great cloud, universally covering all things, and having appeared in the world, he, for the sake of the living, discriminates and proclaims the truth in regard to all laws. It goes on, but that's a lovely extract from it. And so what the Buddha is doing here is he's likening the Dharma that he proclaims to be like a great rain cloud, covering the world on all sides. So it's raining on all beings alike, indiscriminate, whoever they are and wherever they are. And so the raindrops, the individual raindrops, are his teachings, individual to the person receiving it. So each raindrop unique, each individual unique. And there's another story of the Buddha talking about his teachings, the teachings that he actually gave, as being just a small amount of leaves from the forest. There are many, many more. So why did the Buddha use this language of the rain cloud? So to put it into some context, we go back 2,500 years to the Buddha being in India, India being the subcontinent of three distinct seasons: the dry cold, the dry hot, and the monsoon. And in the UK, we don't have these such distinctions between seasons. We have 4 seasons, but they're much more variable. We've had a recent warm, dry spring. Suddenly the rain's arrived, and it feels welcome. But what does it feel like in India when the rains come and the dry spell ends? So I was in India 2 years ago on the pilgrimage in February, and that's the dry cold season. And it's a bit like a hot summer's day in this country. It's about 30 degrees. They call that the dry cold season. Then you get the dry hot, 40 plus degrees. So following on from the dry hot, you get the monsoons. What does that feel like? So I asked 3 of my friends from India, and I asked them, what does that feel like when the rains arrive and the dry spell ends? So Shankar, with a big beaming smile on his face, said that it brings smiles to everybody's faces. It is a blessing. People feel that they're blessed when the rains arrive. I asked Dinesh the same question. He said there's a feeling of expectation and anticipation. People are relying on the rain to arrive, particularly those in agricultural areas where they really do rely on water as well as the heat. I asked Vidya. Vidya couldn't really add too much to those explanations, but he did say it's a relief, a massive relief when the rains arrive and it breaks this heat spell. So I've no doubt that the Buddha sensed this 2,500 years ago. The rain brings blessings. Having relied on its arrival, there was an anticipation and then a relief. So, a question, what was it like for us to receive the raindrops of the Dharma for the first time? What did that feel like? That's perhaps the first question of the evening you could take away to your groups. Some of my own personal thoughts were of relief as well. I felt a great relief. When I first heard the Dharma teachings, here I found something that made sense. And it showed me the possibility of changing my life. I'm recently involved with an introductory course again, and that's a wonderful thing to take part in. Just to hear those lessons again, or actually deliver some of those lessons, we can change. And I'll talk about we can change as being we can grow. But, well, what a relief that was to hear that. You know, I thought I was fixed and stuck as this particular person. Happiness comes from within. Well, I've been looking everywhere else for it. I've been looking all over the place. All kinds of different things I was reaching out for. None of them gave any sort of permanent satisfaction. And dukkha. Well, dukkha was perhaps the teaching that particularly spoke to me when I first heard that there is dissatisfaction, that dukkha is, well, it's an inherent human condition. I wasn't unique in sort of feeling dissatisfaction. So I felt a great sense of relief, personal relief, when I first encountered the raindrops of the Dharma. And then later, the teachings spoke a little more poetically to me, to learn that there's a golden thread connecting my highest aspirations with what is highest in the universe. That really spoke to me. So how do we receive the rain of the Dharma? Another question for groups. So do we saturate ourselves in it? Do we go out and throw ourselves into this rain that's, of the Dharma? Do we soak it in? Do we throw ourselves into a Dharma life? You know, getting involved in Sangha activities, making spiritual friends, going on retreats, all those kind of things. So really allowing ourselves to be immersed in it. Do we do that? Or do we shelter ourselves sometimes? Put the umbrella up? Or go for a more permanent shelter? Some of the teachings and practices can feel daunting and challenging, can't they? Some of them are not easy to take on. I never found any particular teaching to not be true in my experience, but challenging, yes. And the challenge comes when we're invited to try the practices out, because this requires effort, commitment, patience, persistence, overcoming our doubts, Maybe our current social group is just not interested. They're too busy playing with their toys in the burning house. They don't want to know about the Dharma that we're taking out to them. And so there can be a real tension between these aspects of our current life and the future life that we desire. And also there could be parts of us that are not interested as well. They also want to play with the toys. They're not on board. Another way we receive the rain of the Dharma could be, do we save it in our water butts? You know, do we think, oh, these are good ideas. I could perhaps use these in the future, but not now. I'll save it for later. Questions for groups. So the Buddha, shortly after his enlightenment, this is a really interesting phase of the enlightenment story. He was reluctant to teach the Dharma. We're told he didn't think there was anybody who would understand it. And it would be wearisome for him. Little hope that anybody would get it. But then we're told that with his Buddha eye, he looked out at the world and he saw all beings. And the texts say that he saw some whose mental eyes were darkened by scarcely any dust, and some beings whose eyes were covered by much dust. Beings sharp of sense, beings blunt of sense. Beings of good disposition, beings of bad disposition. Easy to instruct, difficult to instruct. And some of them seeing the dangers of future life. And so he saw all these beings as lotuses in different stages of development. Some still in the thick mud below the surface of the water. Some have emerged from the mud, but they're still below the surface. Some breaking the surface and reaching upwards. And a few who are opening their petals and ready to bloom completely. So here begins this symbolism of the lotus as a symbol of growth and potential. So it begins in the slimiest, dirtiest mud below the water surface, and it grows to bloom above the water. So it was out of the Buddha's compassion that he chose to teach the Dharma. It was said that sometimes he trembled with compassion for other beings, for the suffering of other beings. It was interesting that initially he thought, this is going to be really difficult. If we think back to the last theme on Sangha night, the theme on mindfulness, we looked at the practice of awareness of others, and to see others not as objects, but treat people as utilities, but to see them as human beings, that they desire not to suffer, and that they have unlimited potential. If we could see people as lotuses, as potential Buddhas, somewhere in their own stage of development, then we can open the door to compassion. And the Metta Bhavana meditation practice is a really good practice to help us with this. As we go through the stages, looking at ourselves, our friends, people that we don't know, people we find difficult, and then expanding out to all beings without stopping. So for the gardeners amongst you, including myself, you will know this is a time of planting and growing. And everything grows according to its nature. A tomato seed will produce a tomato plant. Plant a potato tuber and it will grow potatoes, not anything else, unless the packaging's wrong. So likewise, we grow according to our nature. I don't grow according to someone else's nature. I'm not going to grow like Andy. Andy's not going to grow like me. So when I receive the rain of the Dharma, the rain is falling on a being that is a complex construction of habits, views, ideas, past conditioning, and that's unique to me and nobody else. So wherever the one rain reaches, the texts tell us, all become fresh and glossy, according as their bodies, forms, and natures are great and small. So the enriching rain, though it is one and the same, makes each of them flourish. So we need to be open to the Dharma teachings. In last week's talk, Bodhanaga introduced us to the 5 stages of spiritual practice with Triratna. And here we're looking at the stage of receptivity. It's the practice of openness and of inquiry, maybe searching or questioning. So this is a constant sense of being available to the Dharma. If we put our hoods up and put our umbrellas up constantly and deflect the rain, well, then our potential is leaking away. And of course, as all gardeners know, growth cannot be forced. We see a tightly bound bud of flowers, and it will only open when it's ready to. We can't force it open. We can't make it grow any quicker than its nature allows it to. So what we as gardeners do is provide the right conditions for it to grow. So likewise in the spiritual life, we provide the right conditions for ourselves and others to grow. Because we're not growing in isolation. As a Sangha, we're helping each other to grow through friendship, encouragement, disclosure, and help when we need it. So sometimes we're giving of ourselves as the rain of the Dharma. We ourselves are the rain of the Dharma. And sometimes we're receiving it. I think this is rather beautiful. You know, whichever of these activities that we're doing, they're helping us to grow, whether we're giving the rain of the Dharma or whether we're receiving it. If we're truly giving of ourselves, wholeheartedly and sincerely, then we're growing a little less self-centered and self-interested. We'll start to feel more in line with reality, that the world doesn't revolve around us. And when we're receiving the rain of the Dharma, well, we grow through the gifts of the teachings. We grow through being with our friends. And this all helps us to see more clearly. And sometimes we're weeding the garden. Sometimes we're harvesting. So when we're harvesting, we're enjoying the fruits of our practice. And this is really important. We need to realize that we're changing and growing. And reflect on that with gratitude. Because with gratitude to all the people and the conditions they provide, that sets us up with the causes of growth. So this could be something like helping on an event with the centre and sitting back afterwards and reflecting how your part went well with a sort of a quiet satisfaction. It's a sort of a, you might say, a Buddha pride. It's not the pride of conceit, but it's just a quiet sort of reflection that went well. I'm happy with that. So sometimes we're weeding our garden and we're getting rid of unwanted plants that can take over. They take over if we're not careful. And they're choking our plants' growth, taking the vital nutrients from them, holding them back. So these weeds need to be stopped. And when I was thinking about this, I started reflecting on the teaching of from the Noble Eightfold Path, and particularly the 4 right efforts. And these are preventing unskillful mental states that have not yet arisen, eradicating unskillful mental states that already exist, developing skillful mental states, and maintaining those skillful mental states that already exist. So it comes back to something, I keep coming back to this reflection at the moment, that we really need to know ourselves, or get to know ourselves, or enlist others to help us to know ourselves. We need to be honest with ourselves, see ourselves as we really are. What's going on in our minds when we're looking at these 4 right efforts? Where is our mind going? In terms of preventing unskillful mental states, this can be sometimes known as guarding the gates of the senses, being watchful. It's the senses that are being activated here. When it comes to eradicating unskillful mental states, well, these are soaked in the 5 hindrances of craving, ill will, restlessness, sloth and torpor, doubt and indecision. This is the work of meditation. This is the work of meditation to help eradicate these 5 mental states. And there are traditionally 4 methods of eradicating these unskillful mental states. One is consider the consequences. Consider the consequences of what would happen if we were to act on what is going through our mind. We can cultivate the opposite, in particular metta. We can allow thoughts to pass like clouds. Just observe them and just let them go, drift on. Or there could be forcible suppression. But no, absolutely not. I'm not going to go there. And if all else fails, we go for refuge to the 3 jewels. In developing skillful mental states, this is again the work of meditation, but also often, also off the cushion, we could be dwelling in the Brahma Viharas, the sublime abodes, practicing metta, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So, all this talk of growth is in the abstract. What does it mean to us? What does it look like? Here's another question for groups. What does growth look like? So, we could take the 5 precepts as an example, as a possibility. So, are we more kind? Are we more generous? Are we prone to less craving? Are we more honest or more aware? All of those are examples of things we could kind of examine in our experience. Or perhaps we could ask ourselves, are we more responsible, more capable, more accepting, looser with our views, more calm, less demanding, more wise? The list could go on and on. Ways of analyzing how we're doing. And I find the idea of endless growth a very attractive one. It could be so easy to have reached my stage of life and sort of believe that the best of life is over. Very easy. I see it in lots of people that I've come into contact with. People that look back longingly at their younger days, perhaps trying to relive maybe their triumphs from the past. But we can still grow. We can continue to grow. Age doesn't stop us. And the idea of continual growth, I find truly inspiring. And this inspiration then ignites my Shraddha, my faith, particularly the longing for more growth, being soaked by the Dharma rain cloud. And of course, Shraddha is the gateway to the spiral path, getting off of the wheel of life. So I'm going to conclude with an extract from a poem by one of the Romantic poets. Most of my talks seem to have a nod to a Romantic poet in there somewhere. But this is a poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley called The Cloud. And I think it's particularly important to look at this because our teacher, Bhante Sangharakshita, was going through a period of his life where he had 2 versions of himself, Sangharakshita 1, Sangharakshita 2. Sangharakshita 1 wanted to be the monk going for refuge, the seeker. Sangharakshita 2 wanted to be a sort of a poet and a writer. And he had a bit of a crisis where he thought, I can't combine the 2. And then what he realized whilst he was teaching his students in Kalimpong, that when he read the Cloud to some of his students, he realized this is the Dharma. He's teaching the Dharma. So I thought this seemed appropriate. I'm not going to read it all, but I'll read the last verse, particularly beautiful. So this is from the Cloud. I am the daughter of earth and water, and the nursling of the sky. I pass through the pores of the ocean and shores. I change, but I cannot die. For after the rain, when with never a stain, The pavilion of heaven is bare, and the winds and sunbeams, with their convex gleams, build up the blue dome of air. I silently laugh at my own cenotaph, and out of the caverns of rain, like a child from the womb, like a ghost from the tomb, I arise and unbuild it again. Thank you.